everybody, we had a connection issue on my end. So, there we go, friends. So I think we're going to get this one going. So, we got some cool board today. We got the IBM Model M. So, yeah. So, we got a blast to the past today, folks. This is probably one of the cooler vintage builds that we've done. Just posting some stuff online, and then we'll get going, folks. We'll get going right at 5:30. Cool. Alright, I think we're gonna give it a second. I want to check Discord really quick. But yeah, folks, this is gonna be a really cool stream. This is one I'm genuinely excited for. Been waiting a few days to kind of get this one going, so really looking forward to this one. Alright, I think we're good, folks. I think we're good. Alright, so alright, everybody, we're gonna get this one going. So I just want to check one thing, make sure my Twitch dashboard is going right. Give me a minute. When my Twitch log out? Give it a second, folks. Give me a second. Just making sure. So, all right, let's see what we got. All right. Yeah, just why is my Twitch being weird? So, yeah, give it a second, folks. But why is my... Alright. Yeah, Twitch is being a little bit weird. I'm just trying to log into my mobile on my phone just so we can make sure it's all going. Alright. Cool. Alright, I think we're good, folks. So, alright, everybody, here's what we're going to be doing today, folks. So, we're going to be doing our first kind of IBM stream today, folks. So historically we do like Alps, we do like some Topra stuff, do like Cherry MX. So what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be restoring and reassembling probably the most important keyboard ever, folks. So this is going to be the IBM Model M from 1986. Now a little bit of history and some kind of background on these keyboards. Prior to the IBM's launch in 1985, there was really no standardization for keyboards. If you look at like old vintage keyboards, some of the layouts are kind of bizarre. Like one of my vintage boards that I restored a little while back is like my IBM Model F XT. If you look at this board, like there's parts of the layout like the main alpha cluster and like number row that kind of look familiar, but when you kind of get over here, this is where stuff kind of gets bizarre. And also you have this XT column. What's up, Fade? But prior to the IBM Model M's creation, there was no standardization for keyboards. So between every kind of keyboard manufacturer, you could have different buttons in different places. And then so in the early 1980s, IBM spent about 3 years developing what they called the IBM Enhanced Keyboard, which would eventually become the Model M. And this keyboard essentially is the basis for what we use today in our world, between our in our kind of modern computing world today. Like over 40 years later, like this keyboard we still utilize to this very day. The Model M came in 1985, and I'd say by the end of the 1980s, going into the 1990s, your standard 101 key layout was pretty much the standard across all computer manufacturers and any company that made keyboards. Like a lot of my old vintage Alps keyboards or even Apple keyboards utilize this AT101 layout. Now, if you notice here, this is we also have these blockers right here, which have come to be known as we call them Win keyless blockers. These are really important because, again, the AT101 layout predates the creation of Windows. So Windows keys would come in the 1990s, where these blockers would be removed and a key would be put right here to give us Windows keys. So yeah, so the difference between the XT and the AT layout, the XT layout is more condensed. I do have an IBM Model F AT on the way, which is going to be really sick, and we will be restoring that. So again, like, so you do see there is some separation between the column right here for the F row. But right here, again, there is no kind of separation for the IBM Model F XT. I do have the Model F AT, where that board is a little bit more interesting because it has a more familiar layout that would really influence the IBM Model M. So the Model F is really interesting. So the Model F uses what we call a capacitive buckling spring system, whereas this keyboard, the way it's built, it's really, really different. What's up, RU? What's really interesting about this board, we'll kind of go through how this board is assembled because it's unlike anything you see in the modern. So all the parts have been fully restored. So we'll go through the case. So this case is made out of a really thick PVC plastic. It's not made of PBT. It's not made of ABS. So these cases do not yellow with age. So if you have keyboards that are made of like ABS plastic, those things are kind of known to yellow over time. PVC does not yellow. So I've thoroughly scrubbed this case. It had like 40 years of dirt and grime on it, but it cleaned out really nicely. And of course, that silver IBM badge is so sexy. Now, this is a first generation IBM Model M. If you look right here off camera, I do have another model, a later second generation Model M that I recently restored off camera. Let me just tell a quick story about this Model M that we have here. Let me unplug it. Which is really, really cool. So this one's really cool. So this is a Model M. I actually bought this Model M basically as a parts board. So we've actually restored a few Model M keyboards over the past few months. I haven't streamed them because these boards are very different. So I bought this keyboard to harvest the keycaps. The keycaps from this keyboard ended up on my IBM Model M Battleship. Because we needed the keycaps to properly ANSI mod the Battleship, because the Battleship comes with ISO and a bunch of really weird keys and split layouts. So I wanted a more kind of uniform layout on the Battleship. This thing is absolutely insane, by the way. Another Model M that we have also restored a few months ago, which was my first foray into IBM stuff, is the IBM Model M Battle Cruiser. So this is also kind of a battleship, but it is a little bit smaller, folks. So this one is really cool. Also a beautiful Model M. So this one I do eventually need to ANSI mod because I do hate the ISO. I hate the small left shift and I hate the split plus on the numpad. So eventually, later down the line, we will tear that board down and get it fully restored. Sorry, it is fully restored, but get it properly ANSI modded. So that's something that is really cool. Now, another thing about the Model M's that people kind of mix up is they call them mechanical keyboards. Now, the thing with the Model M, they are mechanical, but they are technically membrane keyboards. So they use this membrane that kind of serves as kind of like the circuit board or the PCB. So yes, these are membrane keyboards. So people kind of mistakenly think of when people think membrane keyboards, you're thinking of rubber dome membrane keyboards, which really dominate the market. Oh yeah, if you want to see the difference between the Battleship and the Battle Cruiser, I can kind of show you. There are two really interesting boards. Let me move the Model F off the wall so I don't knock it down, because that thing is heavy. That is a heavy board right there. Yeah, I can show them. So the Battle Cruiser is a little bit smaller. I'm not going to be able to have both of these in frame because they're just so freaking massive. So this is the smaller one, but you can kind of see the key difference between them. The Battleship is slightly wider. The other big difference externally that kind of tell them apart is the badge. If you're looking on eBay and you want an IBM Model M Battleship, if you want a proper Battleship, you want the silver badged one. And you can see this is much larger and way more imposing. What's up, Naveed? And of course, we also have the IBM Model M Battle Cruiser. This is much later. These were mostly made in the second half of the 1980s, whereas the Battle Cruisers were made in the 1990s. This one's actually a really late production Battle Cruiser. This one was produced in 1997. So I'm a relatively young guy. I was born in 96, so it's kind of, most of my vintage keyboards are older than me. This is the Battle Cruiser is the one vintage keyboard that I am technically older than. But it's really kind of cool. One thing about these keyboards, they were predominantly designed as terminal keyboards. So when you get my Battleship has been ANSI modded, which is pretty cool. But so this has a very standardized layout. I made it ANSI. I gave it a full proper numpad. But if you look up here on the Battle Cruiser, there's a lot of really weird keys on this keyboard. Like Enter is down here. It has this really weird ISO Enter. The numpad is bizarre. If you look at the navigation cluster, it's all really weird. You also have a T navigation. The cross, and also there's a bunch of just really custom keys right here. So these keyboards were really kind of designed for specific computer and terminal systems back in the day, and they served a very specific purpose. So yeah, if you're looking into for a Battleship, you can get them for like less than $100. They're going to need a lot of work and most likely a bolt mod. We're going to be doing a bolt mod here tonight, so you can kind of see what the heck a bolt mod is. So let me put the Battleships off to the side. And you can just see just how massive they are. If you turn my camera back there, you can see they're freaking massive. They're imposing and they're awesome. And then of course we have a later generation Model M right here. This is what we call a gray badge Model M. This one was produced actually you can tell them right here. One thing that's cool about IBM keyboards is they have a little date sticker that's very detailed exactly when the board was produced. So this one was produced January 15th of 1992. So this is what we call a second generation IBM Model M, and they're lovely. It's about 70 grams of actuation force, and it gives you a nice click and also a very nice tactile feel. Which is really, really cool. So I put these gray keycaps on from Unicomp because, again, I bought this board because I wanted to use its original keycaps on my IBM Battleship, which is right there on the top behind me. So this one's kind of cool. I think it's kind of fun having these gray keycaps from Unicomp, and it kind of matches that gray badge up there. So a really, really cool board. This one is really awesome. Again, it has been fully restored. The IBM stuff I've been restoring, I haven't done on stream because I kind of figured it out as I went. Again, my two Battleships have been fully restored and bolt modded. This Model M has been fully restored and bolt modded. So this is going to be our first build on stream where we're going to actually bolt mod it. So we've gone through the case. It's a very thick PVC plastic that's been fully cleaned up and restored. And this one was produced on November 14th, 1986. So that places it in the range of being a Generation 1 IBM Model M. I've been hunting for one of these for a while. I wanted a proper first generation, specifically for the silver badge. Now, there is an earlier generation of Model M that doesn't have the lock lights, which I do eventually want. But for right now, I think this kind of fills my niche for having Model M's. But there is an earlier version of the Model M that doesn't have the lock lights. When these keyboards initially came out, the computers that they interfaced with could not send commands to the actual keyboard. Therefore, they couldn't send the information that these keys are engaged. So the lock lights were actually done on the screen of the computer. Those are slightly earlier, and most of those are dated 1985 and early 1986. So we kind of see that as like a Gen 0 or like an early Gen 1. So this is a proper Gen 1 IBM Model M, and I really wanted a Gen 1 Model M with these lock lights because I really like the classic look of that. And of course, this case cleaned up beautifully. So we'll put the case to the side and we'll look over kind of the heart of the IBM Model M. These are membrane keyboards. People often mistakenly call these mechanical keyboards. The IBM Model M is kind of a hybrid. It's a membrane, and it uses, again, these kind of buckling springs. So we're going to be installing a ton of these ones. Oh, the square badge goes hard. But we have these little springs, and we have these little springs right here, and then we have at the bottom, and we have these plastic portions, which we call flappers. So this is a capacitive PCB. So when the flapper touches each of these dots, that registers a key signal to the computer that a key has been pressed. So we have a bunch of those. But yeah, this membrane has been fully cleaned up and it's ready to go. I tested it. These membranes are surprisingly robust, and they're, again, just a really, really great piece of engineering. So we have those, and then also there's this little felt sheet that's going to go in between the membrane and also a piece called the barrel plate. And I'll kind of show you the barrel plate because that's where most of our work is going to be. Now, the thing with IBM Model M's, the big point of failure is going to be the barrel plate. because how these keyboards are held together is you have this barrel plate, and on the back of this, you're going to have these little pins that stick out, and those pins are going to go through these holes, and then they would melt that plastic down, turning them into plastic rivets. Oh yeah, it's really cool. So these are, again, this is a throwback to the 80s. So they have these really heavy 1.2 millimeter thick steel back plates. That's what gives these keyboards most of their weight. This board is going to weigh about 2.5 kilos, which is going to be pretty cool. But I sanded this down because this plate does rust like a mofo. So I sanded it down, gave it kind of this nice industrial look, and then I sprayed a clear coat on it to protect the steel to prevent further rusting. So this steel backplate is good to go. But with the Model M's, when you tear them open, you're going to have to perform something called a bolt mod. So we are going to be performing a bolt mod on this, and that's going to ensure that this board will be good for another 40 years of service. Another thing too is this barrel plate. This is what the springs are going to slot into, and also what the keycaps are going to slot into. One thing about this is this plastic is also very brittle. This is supposed to bend, because if you look at this, if you look at this back plate, it is bent. This has a very curved profile. Those of you maybe have seen the Smurv 80 that went on Group Buy recently. That board is very much inspired by the Model M, and they developed a system where they have that curved profile of the PCB. So one thing that we had to do is this portion where it bends to conform to the back plate, that plastic on this barrel plate gets a little bit thicker, and that's prone to cracking, especially when you break these boards open and tear them apart. So essentially what I had to do, I tested it on the Battleship and it worked great, is I took epoxy and I essentially added epoxy on the backside of this barrel plate. And that epoxy essentially stabilized all the cracks. So essentially every row of barrel plates just below them, I added epoxy. So that epoxy stabilized the cracks and essentially has made sure that this barrel plate is going to be good for another 40 or 50 years. It's really ugly if you look at here. All this epoxy looks hideous, but from the top side, you're never going to see it. You're never going to notice that it's there. My Battleship did get that epoxy treatment. So the barrel plate on this one, again, did receive the full epoxy treatment, and it sounds absolutely lovely. And this also has been bolt modded. So all 4 of my IBM boards have been bolt modded. And I know some people have been asking, how the heck do you bolt mod a Model M? And there's videos out there, but essentially what you have to do, once you separate this and you cut off all the rivets, you then have to drill holes through the barrel plate. So you kind of go through where the rivets once were, and then you drill holes through the plastic, and then we're going to start screwing in our bolts. We have about 80 something bolts. I wanted to do this a couple days ago, but I was waiting on these M2 by 8 millimeter screws to come in. So we have about 80 of these things that we have to screw in. Most of the work that we're going to be doing is with this plate. So yeah, you're literally going to be watching me screw in screws to this hunk of plastic. So that's what we got to do here. That's going to take most of our time today. And then we have to go through the painstaking process of screwing down all the bolts. So this is going to take a good long while, folks. So now one thing about this, since this is plastic, if you perform a bolt mod, do not force the screws down. You're just going to lightly screw them in, and then the screws will kind of fall into place. So we're just making sure that these are the correct thickness. And yeah, there we go. We're just making sure the heads are good. So, all right, we're going to start screwing in these bolts. And yeah, that's what we're going to be doing, folks. Yeah, so it's really cool. But like these keyboards are unlike anything like Cherry MX keyboards or Alps. Like those would have been the competitors and the contemporaries to this particular keyboard. But the one thing that's just really interesting to me is I really love the history of these vintage keyboards, and I think it's safe to say like this is the most important keyboard ever created. Now, the one thing about this keyboard, it doesn't invent the QWERTY layout. QWERTY predates the Model M and like digital computing by a very long time. Like QWERTY is very old. That goes back to like the creation of typewriters. But like the layout of this board is the standard that for pretty much everywhere on the planet. Anywhere where you go where there are computers and there are keyboards, they are using the layout that this keyboard pioneered back in 1985. And again, I posted pictures of my IBM Model F XT, and a lot of people said it looks bizarre. And I'm like, well, of course it does by today's standards. It predates the Model M by 4 years. Like my IBM Model F XT is from 1981. So again, the Model M wouldn't have really, again, probably would have been in like early development. Because one thing with IBM that they did is they had a massive team of people devoted to the Model M. They had a massive team of people, and IBM essentially said, design the perfect keyboard. And so the team who were behind this keyboard worked for many years. They surveyed people. They like had a ton of different prototypes. They moved keys around, and they tried to figure out a layout that kind of made sense. And the layout that they came out obviously worked because we still use it today. It is the standard that everyone uses. Which is really cool. And again, there initially was some kind of pushback. Some people really liked the layout that the IBM Model F AT pioneered a couple years earlier. But by the time you get to the late 1980s and then the early 1990s, pretty much everyone is using and copying this particular layout. You have companies like Apple, HP, you have Northgate Computer Systems, Mitsubishi, like just name anyone who's in tech during this like period in the 80s and 90s, like everyone was utilizing this particular layout. So that's just something I think is just really cool. Is this is a historically significant keyboard, especially within the hobby, not only in the keyboard hobby, just in technology in general. And the Model M has a big cult following today. It's either people who are vintage nerds like myself or people who are nostalgic and grew up with these keyboards. There are a lot of people who still daily drive these things. Now the one thing with the Model M, just due to its membrane, just kind of it being based around membrane, it does not have N key rollover. This keyboard has 2 key rollover. So if you're gonna like utilize the Model M, I don't recommend it for something like gaming or like competitive gaming. Again, this is much more like a keyboard for like productivity and like typing and like doing work. I mean, I've gamed on Model M's before. Like it's fine, but like if you're doing like something that's like highly competitive and like your keystrokes matter, like you definitely want like something with N key rollover. But again, I know there are plenty of people out there that still daily drive these things, and it's kind of a testament to how these keyboards were built. Like the fact that these things are still working again 40, 50 years later is just kind of crazy. Because the IBM Model M turned 40 in 2025. So, which is just kind of crazy. And I think that's just kind of wild. Like, there's a really cool story with the Model M's. Like, so IBM initially was producing them under their manufacturing banner all the way until I think about 1991, 1992. And then IBM sold off their keyboard division to a company called Lexmark. Now, to be fair, Lexmark was already producing and manufacturing stuff for IBM up until that point. So it was just kind of IBM just kind of said, here, we're going to give you full responsibility of manufacturing keyboards and peripherals. And then by the time you get to the late 1990s, there's a massive shift in the needs of the keyboard market. So historically, what had dominated the keyboard market were mechanical keyboards, whether you're talking your Model M's, your Alps, your Cherry MX. But the problem with mechanical keyboards is they're very loud and they're very expensive. Like these keyboards were like $200 in like 1980s money. Like that's a metric crapload of money for a freaking keyboard back in the day. So these keyboards were not cheap. They were very expensive. So when you get to the late 1990s and early 2000s, there's a big shift. People want keyboards that are quieter, and people also want keyboards that are much more cost effective. So they want them cheaper. So that's where we see the rise of rubber dome membrane keyboards kind of come about. Rubber dome membrane keyboards are quiet and they're really cheap. You can today you can go on Amazon and get a rubber dome membrane keyboard for like probably less than $10, maybe even $5. So they're really cheap. So and that really kind of made mechanical keyboards go away as being kind of this dominant preferred peripheral that people utilize with computers. But again, the thing is, the Model M just kind of always had its fans, and people saved them. But again, when Lexmark essentially sold off their keyboard division and went under, there was a team of employees who worked at Lexmark who essentially bought up the licensing for the Model M, and they also bought all the manufacturing equipment to produce these keyboards, and they founded a company called Unicomp based in Lexington, Kentucky, and Unicomp is still around today, and they produce new production Model M's that people can buy brand new that have full USB compatibility, which I think is really cool. And one thing that's really cool about Unicomp, I've used their keyboards, and I'll be completely honest, they're fine for what they are, but I still prefer an original Model M. But one thing that's really nice is they make replacement parts for Model M. So if there are small parts on these boards that break, or if you need a new membrane or a new barrel plate, you can get those parts from Unicomp to service and repair your original Model M. So that's one thing that's really kind of cool with Unicomp. And also, they're a very small family-owned business. And that Model M that I showed you with the gray keycaps, those keycaps are from Unicomp, which is really cool. And they have some really fun colorways and some fun keys that you can get for your Model M to kind of spice it up so it's not just beige, which is really cool. So, but yeah, we're kind of working our way around the board, folks. If there's a metric crap load of screws we got to screw in. So we are doing the bolt mod. So, but yeah, this bolt mod also will ensure that this keyboard will be good for many, many years to come. And also, it'll make opening up this keyboard a lot easier. Now, one thing is you'll see, opening this keyboard is still kind of a pain in the ass. But if I do need to open up this keyboard in the future, I literally just unscrew a bunch of bolts, and then I can take the keyboard apart. But it's a really cool keyboard in terms of how it's constructed. And also, my fingers are going to hurt by the end of this. This is a lot of freaking screws we got to screw in, so. But yeah, it's really cool. So, but yeah, we have a metric crap load of these screws we got to put in, so. But yeah, if you are going to do a bolt mod, the screws you want to use are going to be M2 by 8mm screws. And there's a ton of really great videos out there that kind of show you how to drill the barrel plate, how to like fully disassemble the assembly when you first get it. So the one thing about Model M's is like, I bolt modded my battle cruiser back in like November, and I had never done it, and I did it in like a weekend. So it's like it's really simple. You just got to take your time and just be patient and not rush it. And again, these boards clean up really nicely. So, but we've done a lot of work to this board off camera. Again, drilling the holes, stabilizing the cracks in the barrel plate with epoxy. Again, cleaning up and refinishing up the steel back plate. So yeah, and one thing that's cool too, I recently did acquire an IBM Model F AT, which really was kind of the predecessor to this keyboard. So when we get that board, I will restore everything off camera, and we're ready for final assembly. We'll do that on screen. That's going to be a while because there's a lot of parts we got to order for it, because we are going to properly ANSI mod that board. Because again, some of these boards have weird layout. I really like ANSI. That's why the Battleship, again, we properly ANSI modded it, and it came out fantastic. So we're just going through. We got a lot of freaking screws we got to do today. So that one's good. Awesome. Let's make sure that pull. Yeah, so we got a lot of freaking bolts we got to do. So it's cool. But yeah, these are really awesome keyboards. And again, it is a throwback to the 80s. And I'm going to be doing some couple keyboard meets in April. And I'm definitely taking out all the IBM stuff. Because again, the history of these boards. And also, it's kind of cool meeting people too who are a little older. Maybe people who were like, who grew up in the 80s or like grew up in the 90s and like remember using these keyboards. It's always kind of cool meeting folks who are a little bit older. And seeing them get nostalgic for these old keyboards, which I think is really cool. So, we're just working our way over on the F row. So, yeah. So it is a good time, folks. But yeah, these are really cool. And the thing that's cool about Model M's, you can get them for a very reasonable price. Even the battleships, like you can get a Model M probably $100 or less. At least here in the United States. I mean, these things they're common. The thing with the Model M, and even like the Battleship and the battle cruisers, like they were made in the freaking millions, like tens of millions. IBM made a metric crapload of these things. Like these things were everywhere back in the day. So that's just one thing to note too. Is like again, they're very common, and again, you shouldn't be paying a lot for these. Like this silver badge, like it does fetch a little bit more of a premium. I paid about $100 for this one. But you can get these again for like, especially some of like the Gen 2 and Gen 3 Model M's for like $50. And then they make really fun restoration projects. So yeah, so we're just kind of going through. We're almost done with the F row. I'm gonna move on to. Yeah. So yeah, these clean up just incredibly nice. So, but yeah, I just love the history of these keyboards. Again, the old IBM stuff is really cool. And again, those of you may not know, like IBM's nickname is Big Blue. So like, I always just say go Big Blue when I'm doing the IBM stuff because it's just really cool. And again, IBM is still around. Like, I think if I had to pick like a tech company who's like really historically significant, it's IBM. Like, prior to like the personal computing revolution that really started in the late 70s and early 1980s, prior to that, it really was IBM and like everyone else. Like, IBM was top dog. Like, IBM had been around for decades, producing like business machines and like early computers, for like the industrial and like the business market. I mean, their name stands for industrial business machines. So it's just really cool. Like, and last year I had the opportunity. I was up in Silicon Valley. I was seeing Metallica for the weekend. There was a 2-night concert. I had a day in between, so I got to go and visit the Computer History Museum. I had a free day, so I went. That's one thing I really wanted to see. And the Computer History Museum has an amazing like computer collection going back to like stuff that's like incredibly rare, and historically significant. But they have a lot of like really cool early IBM stuff. Like a lot of really cool stuff. Like one of the computers they have there, which is really cool, is they have a computer that takes up literally an entire room. Like, it's massive. Like, the room is the size of like the normal person's like maybe apartment. Like, it is a massive computer, and the computer's from the 1960s, and it's an IBM computer, and the amazing thing, it frickin' works, which is the remarkable part. So when I was seeing the demonstration of this like computer from the 60s. They said they tracked it down from a warehouse that was selling it off on eBay of all places, and they basically said like, as long as you pay for shipping, it's really like you can have it. So the Computer History Museum purchased it, had it shipped back here to the United States. The problem was the computer didn't work, and the thing was IBM really didn't keep good records on how to get those really old computers working again. So what they did is they actually got a team of volunteers who were all retired IBM engineers from back in the day, and it took this team of volunteer retired IBM engineers about 5 years of working on this computer, and they actually got it to work, which is really remarkable and just really freaking cool. And again, the computer does very simple tasks. It's not anything mind-blowing. Like, it's, again, the phone I have right here does everything else 1,000 times better than that computer. But the fact that like a piece of history like that was freaking working was just so cool to me. Okay, that's not. So like that's something I really admired and really loved. I need to find a better bit to kind of grip these. All right, give me a second. I gotta grab a better bit. My hex bit is gripping correctly. All right. So yeah, but sorry about that. But yeah, if you are ever in Silicon Valley or like San Francisco, please visit the Computer History Museum. It is definitely worth a visit. It was like the best $20 I've ever spent to like visit a museum. Like, it was really cool. I gotta find a bit that grips these a little bit better. So, I mean, I've always been cooled down. Let's figure out what the heck I got. I got so much stuff from over the years. So let's see what we got. No, it's not gonna fit. Alright, so let's see. Nope. Let's find something a little bit smaller. No. So yeah, let me just see what we could do here. No. Okay, let's see this one. No, they're all a little too big. Let's see if this one will fit. No? Alright, gotta find a bit, some kind that'll fit this. Because, yeah, that's not gonna be exactly ideal. But, yeah, Perry, it was a really cool opportunity. Like, definitely visit the Computer History Museum, folks. If you were ever in Silicon Valley, please visit it. Alright. Interesting. No? My bit isn't grabbing it, so I want to see if I have something smaller. Yeah, we'll figure it out. But let me see if I can just pull this one out. We'll come back to that one, but let's see. Let's see if it's a little bit more conducive to this one. No. Okay, we'll just keep doing it. Yeah, we're good. So, but yeah, it's a really cool time, folks. So yeah, but definitely, if you can ever visit the Computer History Museum, please do. Because another thing too is like cool with their collection. They have an extensive like IBM collection. Of course, they have like they have like a stuff for like Intel, like Apple, of course, because Apple, of course, was had significant contributions, which was really cool. So let me just get this one going. There we go. But yeah, there's a lot of really cool history. Okay, these are like stripping out. My things are like stripping out, so we may have to find out. Let me try this one. Let me see if I have something else. We'll grip it. Give me a second. These are being funky. Alright, we'll come back to those. But yeah, so it's a really cool time, folks. Like, definitely getting to see some of that old vintage stuff is just awesome. So... just kind of getting these screws. Come on, screws, get in there. Okay, they're like some of these. Let's try and screw as many of them as I can. We're gonna see. So, yeah, we definitely want to see if we can get those screwed in. So. Let me just check my box really quick. I want to see if I have something else. Let me just check another one of my bits because I want to see if I have... Sure, something. Alright, cool. On with this one. Cool. Yeah, this one's different bits, but we'll make it work, folks. We will make it work. So, yeah, this is a really cool one. Yeah, thanks, David. I just took kind of Alex Otis' suggestions. I kind of did it right there. So. Alright, give me a second, friends. Got a text. Give me a second, peeps. Got to grab something really quick. Alright, give me a second, folks. I gotta take a picture or something. Going. Yeah, but this is gonna be a... Oh crap, yeah, these keep stripping out. That's so weird. I don't know why it's doing that. So yeah, we're gonna screw in as many as we can. That's kind of weird, but we're gonna see if I have a bit that'll work. That's kind of the frustrating part, because I don't know if we're gonna be able to do that. Yeah, I want to see something. Okay, let's just kind of go through my bits here and see what we can use. Yeah, because they keep... That's not good, man. Yeah, that is not good. Let's try this one. Try this one. Nope. Okay, we're just gonna see what we can do. Alright, we're gonna... Oh, switch gears. Alright, where are these? Where are those? Give me a second, folks. I'm gonna find another screw. And we're gonna utilize it. Alright. Cool. Yeah, we're just making it work, friends. We got a metric crap load of screws we're gonna use, so we got this. Let's see. That doesn't work. That is so weird. Okay, I want to try something really quick because I don't know if these screws... Oh, so first IBM Keeb would have been my battle cruiser right here. So the battle cruiser, so it's the lower, it's the smaller of the two battleships. So, yeah, battle cruiser, definitely one of my favorites for sure. Yeah, the battle cruiser is one I am huge fan of. So absolutely love that board. And again, it is my first IBM board, so I got it for like 40 bucks. So the cool thing with IBM stuff is like definitely be patient and look at deals that pop up. For crap's sake, okay. We're gonna try something different. Okay. Some of these screws are being weird, so I think we're gonna try something a little bit different. It's going to take a little bit longer, but hey, we're going to do this. So, alright, cool. Properly thread these. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like, the IBM boards are going to take more work. That's just the nature of how they are. For crap's sake, I don't know why. Yeah, we're gonna go as far as we can with some of these, because some of these screws are being really stubborn. So, yeah, we're gonna go as far as we can with some of these screws. I may have to get a different bit. What is the bit for these? So, yeah, we're gonna screw as many of these as we can. Yeah, we're just kind of working our way through. So we're on the numpad right now. And then once we'll get over to the kind of the alpha cluster. That one. Yeah, some of these screws are just the bit. I don't have the right bit apparently. Just so weird, but hey, we're gonna make it work. Yeah, we have a few we haven't been able to like properly screw in, so we'll just kind of see. Oh, we have a oh god, we have holy crap! Hi, Alex Otis, people. Good lord, hi friends. We are doing an IBM Model M here, folks. So we're having fun here. So welcome everybody. If you want to, we are doing an IBM Model M from 1986. So very different in how this board is constructed, but like holy crap, people. Hi friends. I mean, this is a very differently constructed keyboard than probably anything most people are kind of used to. So, Yeah, so we're currently, this is a keyboard that needs something called a bolt mod. So we are currently screwing in bolts into this plastic plate right here. So once we get these bolts kind of all in here, you're going to kind of see how differently constructed this keyboard is compared to pretty much anything you kind of see in the modern sense. Very different from like Cherry Max, very different from like Alps, which is kind of my forte, but I've really fallen in love with the IBM stuff. This is, for those of you who may not, a lot of people who are joining us, thank you, welcome everybody. This is the most historically significant keyboard ever. The IBM Model M created in 1985, it's pretty much created the standard AT101 layout that we pretty much all know and love today, over 40 years later. Pretty much every keyboard on the planet that you see in use today, whether it be like just your standard full size or any of your customs, use the layout that this keyboard pretty much pioneered and created back in 1985. This particular keyboard, it was created in 1986, but this is still what we consider a first generation IBM Model M, which is really cool. Damn it. So yeah, we're kind of going through and we're putting in all these bolts. And yeah, we're going to kind of get it going. So this is going to be a good one, folks. So we are just, there's a metric crap load of screws we got to do on this particular keyboard. So it creates for a fun time for sure. Oh, damn it. Yeah, we're going to see. So yeah, so we are going through, folks. We're about like halfway with this particular one, folks. But yeah, thank you, Alex Otis' community, for kind of jumping in. It's a fun time. But yeah, this is a really cool board. So yeah, we're having fun with it. Yeah, that one's kind of stalled. It's all good. We're going to keep it going. So we're putting in a metric truckload of screws into this thing, and you're gonna kind of see once we start, once we have all these screws in the barrel plate, y'all are gonna kind of see how the heck this thing is constructed, because it's very different. It is very different from like your kind of bog standard mechanical keyboard. This is a membrane keyboard, so when we put it together, y'all are gonna see all the membrane that is kind of the heart of this particular keyboard, which is gonna be pretty interesting. So that's one thing that is really cool about this keyboard. Just poke a hole through there. There we go. So yeah, we're just kind of going through. But a lot of work has been done to this keyboard. This plastic plate that we're screwing into, there were cracks in it, so I stabilized those cracks with epoxy. Ah, damn, that one. That one really didn't want to go through. Okay. We're going to see how we're going to get. We have a few bolts that aren't just going to go in because apparently my bit's not the correct. So we're going to make it work, folks. We're going to wing it and make this work. And then we'll just screw those in later. Yeah, there's another one then. Just poking through, dang it. Well, we'll make it work. So yeah, it is a good time, folks. But yeah, my friends who have joined us, thank you so much. So we're just on our alpha cluster now, and yeah, we're just screwing these puppies in. So it does take a lot of time. These are keyboards that definitely take patience, for sure. So yeah, definitely. That's one thing I've learned with the vintage since I got into vintage stuff is like these are definitely tests and patience, folks, which is really cool. So we definitely just want to take our time screwing these in, and yeah, they're all gonna kind of go in. So yeah, we're just kind of taking our time. Because again, also too, we don't want to screw these down too hard. Because we don't want to crack the plastic anymore. I mean, the plastic is pretty stabilized with the epoxy. But we just want to make sure you are being gentle. This is 40-year-old plastic here. So this is probably the most brittle and most fragile part of this particular keyboard. So, there we go. we're just taking our time. Okay. See if that one went through. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we're coming along, folks. So we're getting there. We have probably about 10 more bolts we got to do. So, and we'll kind of figure out these ones that didn't, for some reason, didn't let me screw them all the way in. We'll kind of figure that out as we kind of go. Oh, there's one that didn't go through. It's all good. And we're getting a majority of these bolts, so we should be fine. I can just screw those ones. The ones that don't screw all the way down, we can just get them at a later date, but... Alright. Coming there. So we're almost there, folks. To start doing, like, the real kind of fun assembly. We'll start putting flappers in and whatnot. Start putting the springs in this board, but we have a lot of stuff. So we have, let's see, about 6 more, and then we also have this bottom row we got to do, so we'll get that. So we're almost done with the alpha cluster. We have about 6 more in the alpha cluster. Cool. Coming along, friends. Coming along. So. Yep, that one didn't want to go all the way through, dang it. It's all good. So, we are getting there, folks. Got a couple, yeah, we're almost done with the alpha cluster, and then we'll just do the very bottom. Has some screws we got to do. So, that one I want to go down. It's all good. Yeah, we got 3 more in here. Yeah, but like you said, this is a definitely a lesson in patience for sure when you work on just vintage keyboards. So they're not gonna. These are definitely like multi-day projects. Like when I work on vintage boards, it definitely takes a few weeks off camera between restoring everything, adding fresh coats of paints, refinishing stuff. So yeah, these are a lot of work for sure. But the end result is amazing, because like when you type on like a Model M or like any of my vintage boards, like seeing like the end results at the end of it all is really worth it. Being able to see how these boards come together. That one didn't want to go all the way in. So really gratifying work. Yep, another one I didn't want to put through. Almost there. So. Cool. Alright, we just got to do this bottom row right here. And then I think we'll be good to start flipping this over and putting our springs in, which will be nice. So. Awesome. So we are all coming along. We got about 4 more screws we got to do. And there's a few of these we got to figure out how I'm going to get them down before I get the pliers out and screw those ones down. Coming along, friends. Coming along. So, Yeah, this is a very different system. And again, this board is just historically significant, folks. So if you want a keyboard to kind of thank for why keyboards are the way they are, it's going to be the IBM Model M. This is a very historically significant keyboard because it essentially gave us the AT101 layout that we all know and love today, and it is pretty much the standard that all keyboards live by to this very day. So that is really cool. So a lot of love for this keyboard, and again, this keyboard very much has a cult following. There are a lot of people who are still very, very big fans of this particular keyboard. So that's something that is just really cool about it. So there's a lot of love for this keyboard. And there are some people who still daily drive these things. I'm definitely going to daily drive one for a while. So, and again, you can find Model M's pretty cheaply online. You can get them for like less than $100, and they make great restoration projects. They're going to probably need a lot of love because these things were meant to be used and abused back in the day. Going good. We got one more, and then there's a few we got to we have to get the pliers out and just tighten them down by hand without the bit. So yeah, one more, folks. That one's gonna be weird. Okay, we're gonna swap our bit really quick, and then we're gonna go in from the other side on this one to get this hole kind of tapped and threaded. All right, it's just there we go. And there's a lot of hand fitting and a lot of fun on this one. So, alright, let's try that. Let's try that bit again. Alright, cool. This is not letting me. Alright, we're gonna skip that one. Alright, let me grab my pliers and we're gonna see if we can get some of these more stubborn ones. Let me see if those are gonna go down. Alright, let me see if I get something that's a little bit grippier on that. Let me just get the top case. We might just have to reassess those later down the road. Yeah, I think we'll be good. Alright, it's great. Alright, these ones that there's certain screws my bit just isn't tall enough. For some reason it's not gripping them correctly. So there's a few that we're not going to be able to screw in tonight, which I am okay with. Because at the end of the day, I can come back later. But I think for the purposes of what we're doing today, we should be fine. Try and get this last one in here. Yeah, that one's not gonna work, so it's fine. All right, cool. All right, we're gonna move some of these. We're gonna put these longer screws away. So let me just give me a second. Let me put these ones away. Just get the last of these. And then we'll start doing final assembly, folks. And that's where it's going to be even more interesting. So, again, these boards are definitely a lesson in patience, for sure. Alright, awesome. Alright, let's flip these over. And we'll kind of go from there, so... Let's get this. Let's also grab these puppies because we're going to have to lift this up because we're going to have some springs here we're going to be working on soon. So let's get these little flappers out and we'll start installing all these. So these little flappers, these are going to be our springs. So we're just going to start installing them. That's what's going to be our kind of our main actuation when we type down on these boards. And there's 101 of these because we are a proper 101 key keyboard here. So yeah, we're going to keep it going. So yeah, we have to install a metric boatload of these. So these are called flappers. So these have the spring that's going to buckle, which gives us that iconic name, the buckling spring keyboard. So I'll just bring a pile of these up here. Yeah, you can see our screws sticking through. We got most of the screws through, so we should be good. And again, I think at a later date I'll have to get a proper bit for these bolts. And again, I'll do the ones that didn't go all the way through. That's no big deal. But for the purposes of stream tonight, this board should work just fine. So, got our F row done. Let's do our numpad now. So we'll get our numpad going. Yeah, these little flappers are going to be what we hear click. And these springs are also going to be the part that buckle when we get it all together, which is going to be really cool. So IBM's Model M's are just really cool. The mechanism is just really, really awesome. Oh, forgot. I got to look at my keycaps. Oh, I forgot. I have to put my stabilizers in. Dang it. All right, give me a second. All right, we skipped a step, everybody. No, so not all IBMs have these buckling springs. It just depends on the model. I gotta flip it over. I have to put my stabilizers in. Oops. So, forgot that step. So let's put our stabs in. So, no, so it depends. So like, IBM Model M's are going to be what we call buckling springs. And then you also have capacitive buckling springs of the IBM Model F. So they're two very different systems. But we need to get our bigger keycaps out here really quick. Give me a second. I'm gonna get some of our big keycaps to identify where do the stabs go. Okay. So I'm just gonna put these in here. Okay, do we have any of our other stabs here? Nope. Okay. Cool. Alright. Put those away. Yeah, we just want to make sure our stabs are correct. So, because I've actually once built an IBM board and I put the stab. I put certain portions back in the wrong place, and give me a second, I dropped something. Having to tear down the thing and reassemble it was not fun, so this is definitely going to save time and also headache. So I need some of my other stabilized caps here, so you can kind of see some of the caps. So this one's going to get us stabilizer inserts. That's our shift. Our shift is over here. Perfect. Our big shift is gonna get its stabilizer over here, and then our backs are enter right there, and this is gonna be our enter here. I'm getting an insert pod right there, and then our backspace gets a rod right here. Now we're just making sure we have our stabilizers correctly done. So trust me, it's not a fun time having to tear this thing apart again. Alright, we're good. got our stabs in there, so now we know pretty much all the other empty barrels. Actually, we're going to keep out. We're going to keep out a few keys just to make sure for my OCD. These ones don't have stabilizer rods. We'll kind of go through them. But yeah, these are really cool. But yeah, but the IBM keyboards are really cool. And IBM made keyboards with other switches. Like, there are IBM keyboards that had out switches and whatnot. So IBM didn't just use their buckling spring technology for their boards. They definitely utilized other stuff as well. The buckling springs are just what they're probably most well known for and most famous for within just the keyboard space. But there's a ton of really cool IBM keyboards. Like, the old IBM stuff is just really cool. So, alright. Now we can properly flip it over. Now we have our stabs in. So, I want to do these ones really quick. So, that one. And this numpad one is just kind of interesting. I want to make sure we get the numpad done correctly. Perfect. Awesome. So we'll do the rest of our numpad. Now, the numpad's always kind of special and interesting. So, just want to make sure all those springs are in there. Yeah, building these is definitely fun. Like, I definitely enjoy it. Numpad done. We got all of our stabilizer inserts taken care of. So, yeah, I'm kind of glad I probably noticed that because, again, that's always can be a kind of a pain in the butt with these. Yeah, definitely a fun time with these for sure. So let's do our arrows now. Do our navigation cluster, our home cluster here. And then we just got our F row and our kind of our main cluster. But yeah, these are really cool keyboards, and this keyboard is 40 years old this year. So this was produced in 1986 and it's 2026. So this is a 40-year-old keyboard. So again, it's not my oldest keyboard. My oldest keyboard would be my IBM Model F. That is my oldest keyboard, which was manufactured in 1981. So that is a very old keyboard. Just want to make sure right there. Just making sure the space bar is good for our spacing. We're good there. So we'll put those keys back, and then yeah, we can do the rest of our flappers now. So that is really good. So, yeah, very slow process. You want to take, like I said earlier, you do want to take your time when you work on these boards, just because of their age. You don't want to break anything, and you want to just take your time. You don't want to rush these keyboards. They will get done when they get done, and also you want to do it right. That's like the big thing with these boards. You want to do it right. So, getting it going. Sit there in 6. Alright. Moving on to our next row. So, halfway through the alpha cluster, which is nice. Pretty good. Alright, next row. Yeah, there's like 101 of these little flappers, so one for each of the keys. So definitely takes time, and also the frustration if this gets like, if this falls and you gotta reset them all. It's kind of like doing the springs on a Topra keyboard, which is always a fun time, everybody. So we will be doing some Topra coming up forward. We got some Dynacap in. We were trying to do Topra on Friday for our client, and we realized we didn't have the right spacebar wires. So we have those in order. So when those come in, we'll be doing a client Topra build, and we'll also be doing some of my personal Topra builds, which are going to be awesome. So we're coming along, friends. So I just got a couple more rows, and then we'll start putting on. We'll bring out the pad and then the membrane, which is going to be really cool. Let's grab the rest of these flappers, bring them on over here. There we go. Getting that F-row done. We are getting really close, friends. I got that F row and then just the number row on our alpha cluster. Last couple of flappers, and then we'll be good to like start bringing our membrane out. It's gonna be awesome. All right, there we go. All of our flappers. Let's get the membrane. So we're gonna put this protective sheet on here. Goes under there. Cool. Awesome. And then we have our membrane. So yes, for those of you who may not know, the IBM Model M's are membrane keyboards. So that is something to note for these keyboards. So we'll put on this back plate, and then we're going to start screwing stuff down, which is where the fun really begins with these keyboards. So now we're going to get some washers out, and we're going to go around and do some corners. So we got to get these little M2 washers and M2 nuts. And we're going to start screwing stuff down. So, this is where it gets kind of tedious, but that's definitely where we want to start getting everything going. So, I'm going to go up here. That one in, which is pretty good. Let's go to another corner. Let's get this corner over here. I usually like to do a corner with each one, and then yeah, that kind of holds the assembly together while we can kind of work our way around. So like I said, this is a very slow work, very slow process on these IBMs, but it's definitely necessary for these boards to kind of just the way they're constructed. That one's held in. Just gonna go to our next corner. We'll do that one at the bottom right here. That one's not gonna screw on. We need more tension first. So let's go to, let's see that one. one's screwed in. So that's really good. Let's get that one right there. We just kind of have to work our way around. Essentially what these screws are doing is it's going to be essentially clamping the entire assembly together. So that's essentially what we're doing. Just making sure we got enough. We're gonna try and go up here, grab this one. Grab a bolt, and we're just gonna kind of work our way around. So. That one helps. See if I can get that one right there. And we are just working our way around. Alright, let's get this one in. And we're just working our way around. That one in. Awesome. Let's see if we get this next one right here. Get this one right here in this corner. Let's see if we can get that one right there. Pull that one. See if we can get that one. Let's see that one. We can get. Yeah, not all these screws were able to make it through, unfortunately. Just the way my bit wasn't the exactly correct one, so we're gonna screw in pretty much all the ones we can today, and then at a later date, off camera, I'll that one we're not gonna be able to get. At least not yet. That one we can. Cool. That one we got. Awesome. See if we can get these two. I know those ones were pretty solid. So yeah, we just gotta, this is the part that just kind of takes time and patience. So. Let's just see. Yeah. Oh yeah, those are, we can get those. give it a second. Just making sure everything's good. All right. All right, let's see if we can get this one going. Okay. You may have to do a little more compression on that one because I can't get that one. Yeah. All right, let's try. Let's do this one. Let's do this one right here. Click on that one. See if we can do one up here. Yeah, let's do some of these. Yeah, but we're making it through, folks. Again, this is just taking a lot of patience, for sure. Just gotta work our way around. All right. Making good, looking good so far. Yeah, it's held together, which is nice, but we still need proper like mounting pressure and everything. So okay, let's see. That one's good. There's like a metric crap load of these bolts we gotta do, so. Let's see if we can get these top ones up here. So, that one's good. That one. You're just gonna have to carefully work your way around it. Get a good chunk of these bolts in, which is really good. So here, the throw. Yeah, so there's a lot of pressure holding this whole assembly down. Three on the top. And that should have a good chunk of them in. We'll see if we can get some of these other ones. But yeah, this is a super slow process. I'll have enough for that one to grip onto. So we'll go to this one. Oh, that one on. Another bolt. Let's try getting this one again. It's not enough for that one to grip, so that one probably didn't get in all the way. Let's try this one. Should be able to get those two. Alright. That one. Let's get this one. All right. All right, here. Get that one. Get some of these on the bottom. I'm gonna try and get one right here. I'll try and get that one again, because we'll try getting some of these on the bottom. I think we'll be good. Because again, most of these right here we're not gonna be able to get, unfortunately, because the screws would not go in all the way. So I need to just get a better screwdriver for those. Okay, these two we should be able to get. These two we should be able to try and get, so let's try and get those. That's good. Should be able to try and get those. So let's try this one. Okay, got that one. Okay, I think I've gotten all the ones that I can do. Oh. Now that one we can try. Okay, so one in the middle will be huge if we can get that one. This one right here. Let me try and get that one. Nope, that one's not gonna work. No. Okay, so, alright folks, so, that is not all the bolts we need to do for the bolt mod, but for my bit that I used to like screw in the bolts wasn't exactly working. So for the purposes of the build today, that's pretty much all we're going to be able to do in terms of our bolt mod. So I think another evening I'll have to get a better bit. We'll have to go through, I'll have to come back and re-screw all those down, but for the purposes of our build today, we should be fine. Not everything's going to work on it properly, but it's okay. So, but yeah, there we go, friends. So let's get our keycaps, and we'll start installing our keycaps, and then we'll go from there, folks. So, and we'll kind of go over why the keycaps are the way they are in these boards, because it's very different from kind of your standard type of keyboard that you are used to. So these IBM keyboards use two-piece design. So you have the part that actually goes into the actual spring mechanism, and then you have the part that has your legend and your lettering. So it's a two-piece design. So they just kind of slot in like that, and that gives you your keycap. So these are also PVT. So really, really high quality keycaps. They're not gonna ever wear off. These things will be good till the end of time. So we're going to put on these keycap inserts first. So that's what we're going to do. And we want to make sure we hear a click, an audible and tactile click when we push these down. If you don't hear a click, take the keycap insert off and reinsert it, and you should be good. So we're going to install all these inserts first. Yeah, it's looking good. Just getting our F-row out of there. Oh, yeah, you can see how it goes pretty good. So these have a wonderful and lovely feel. For me personally, I have both an Model M's and a Model F. I personally prefer the Model F, but I was also talking to some folks, and some people actually prefer the Model M over the Model F. I think it's interesting, so it just it comes down to personal preference. So what do you prefer? Both systems are absolutely great. If you're looking for a vintage keyboard or a vintage restoration project, a Model M or a Model F will be awesome. Mind you, Model Fs are going to be more expensive. Just be aware of that if you do want to get into one of these. Model M's are way cheaper. So we're just putting them all in. Let's get our put these little clips on our enter and whatnot. Yep. I took it off. get our shift here. Let's do our stable. We're doing our stabilized keycaps right now. Come back to that one. Let's get our enter here. And then we also have our backspace. Let's get our plus here. Alright, and then we're also, that's our shift right here. Alright, and then our backspace. And then we also have our 0 for our numpad, which is going to be super sick. Alright, so let's install the rest of our keycap inserts, and we'll install the keycaps, and then we'll get this puppy ready for final assembly, which will be nice. Don't forget the spacebar. Get that spacebar wire out. Cool. All right. Cool. Got that one going. Now let's do our rest of our alpha cluster. Yeah, it's looking good. Like that control right there, looking good. Yeah, so. We just need to do our alpha assembly, and then we're getting really close. Coming along, folks. So cool. I'm almost there, friends. Oh, well, crap. Well, we forgot to install a spring right here, folks. Well, we'll kind of live with it. I think for the purposes of today's demonstration, everybody. Well, I'm going to have to come back to this board in a couple days anyway, so it is all good. Just kind of let that stick in there for right now. Alright, let's put let's put the keycaps on, and then we'll do final assembly, and we'll do a sound test, and then we'll get everyone out of here, folks. So yeah, but these keycaps just kind of click on there. So yeah. Yeah, very, very familiar with this keyboard. That's the very nice thing about it. Even though this is a 40-year-old keyboard, it still is familiar because of its layout. So it's looking really good. So yeah, you can see it's really good. Oh yeah, they are literal keycaps. Yeah, you are correct, my guy. So yeah, definitely have to come back to this board in a few days when I get a new bit, and also I'll probably have to fully tear this apart again off camera because I forgot a spring right there. Oops. Yeah, it's okay. More so, it's just kind of showcasing how this board is built. So I think mission accomplished on that. So we are almost there. So I got the bolts from Amazon. So yeah, really, again, it's a really simple and really easy mod to do. It just takes time, and you gotta be patient with it. That's my only thing I tell people with the bolt mod is just take your time. It's not a race. You'll get it done when you get it done. So we are almost there, folks. Yeah, get that one. That's yeah. I'm gonna have to re-tear this thing apart in a couple of days, which is fine. But again, the main thing was just kind of show people this board and its history. So there we go, folks. All right, let's get our little daughter board in here, and let's get that attached, and then we'll get this thing mounted. So let's get that mounted. This is our. This will connect to our LEDs, which are nice. And then we're going to plug into our daughter board. So again, these are very easy boards to work on, thankfully. So, and then we have that portion right there. So I'm going to plug in our ground wire really quick. So okay, let's just tighten that really quick. Okay, cool. Alright, let's put this in the bottom of the case. Let's screw it together. And then like I said, I'll have to revisit this board off camera in a few days to get it properly put back together. But I think for the purposes of what we're doing today, I think this is more than sufficient. Alright, let's tuck that cable back there for our indicator LEDs, and let's put the top case on. Make sure those clips clip in correctly. Screws just to kind of hold it together. Grab that little tool that will screw these puppies in. There. And then I'll do one right here. And I think that'll be good for the purposes of what we're doing today. Alright folks, there we go. There is our IBM Model M. So that is a really cool board, folks. Again, probably the most historically significant keyboard of all time. And again, it gave us the layout we all know and love today, folks. So, folks, that was a little bit of a longer one. A little longer than I thought it would be, but we're going to get on out of here, folks. So those of you who tuned in, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody. It was a great time.